Oh my God! Get the hell out of here! You can talk about Rodgers. Out of here!
Okay, well, what is the need to bring up the Yankees?
It's just stuff to bring up because
Are you kidding me? Come on, dude! This came out of nowhere!
Not. Clemson is a top team. Don't start with that. Clemson's a top team, no doubt, 100%.
Unless it's on Saturday, then they might move down.
Welcome back to Go Chat. We are hitting our benchmark 50th episode. There is a great interview involved in this episode today. We are interviewing Ithaca College alum Jake Asman. We ask him all of his different questions about his background, what he's doing now, and some Houston-oriented questions as he is in the Houston area doing his radio show. But before that, we know that you guys want to hear our Go to the number. It is number 50. It's a big number. Number 50, Tommy.
I'm going to go with Adam Wainwright for this one.
Oh, my God.
I know.
We're 50 episodes in and you haven't picked anyone other than a baseball player except like 2 times.
A couple of times. I picked Tom Brady. I picked Peyton Manning. But today for 50, we're going to go with Adam Wainwright, pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals. Adam, he won a World Series back in 2006. He's a 3-time All-Star, 2-time Gold Glover, a Silver Slugger winner. He's been great his whole career for St. Louis, and he's not at the caliber of some of the people that we've talked about throughout the first 50 episodes, but he's been pretty impressive, a 41.0 career WAR, which, that's respectable. So Adam Wainwright, he's my go, the number 50.
I mean, you say he's not as high on the level as the other 49 episodes. He's not as high on the level as the other 250s that I can think of off the top of my head right now. And I guarantee you both of them are going to be named. I'm going to swing it to Mike here.
Yeah, Tommy. Listen, just you can choose something else other than a baseball player. I'm just throwing it out there. A little dart throw. It might hit. It's 100% not going to hit. I'm not even joking.
Playing darts now?
What?
We're playing darts now?
We should do a dart tournament.
Tommy, we're going to go bowling. We're going to do a Goat Chat bowling episode whenever we get back together and the bowling lane's open. But anyways, let's not veer away from the topic at hand. Let's get right into my go to the number 50. And that is David Robinson, the Admiral. He was one of the best centers of all time for the Spurs. Won 2 championships, 10-time All-Star, 8-time All-Defensive. Very impressive. He has a bunch of other accolades as well, 10-time All-NBA. And he was just Tim Duncan before Tim Duncan was. He stepped into a struggling Spurs franchise and brought them to the promised land one time. Then he did it with the second time with Timmy D. And yeah, he taught Timmy D a lot of new things, and that's why I'm picking him for go to number 50.
Matt.
I'm going to have to go with the Admiral, David Robinson. I think Mike said everything great. He's a Hall of Famer, 10-time All-Star, 2-time NBA champ. I thought this was pretty easy, in my opinion, 8-time All-Defensive. But Tommy, if you want to go with a baseball player, go with a baseball player, even though it is incomparable between these two athletes. But that's my go to number 50. It's been amazing having 50 different episodes with you guys already.
Well, I'm going to choose a linebacker who is a part of the best NFL defense of all time. He was a part of the Monsters of the Midway in Chicago, Mike Singletary. I know Matt's hurting because he's a Packers fan. But he was a great linebacker. Mike Singletary was a 10-time Pro Bowler, 7-time All-Pro. He won a Super Bowl with the Bears. He was 2-time Defensive Player of the Year in 1985 and 1988. And in 1990, he won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, which was something big for him because obviously those of you who know Walter Payton know he was a Chicago Bears running back. So being able to take that home after being a Chicago Bear was definitely something meaningful for Mike Singletary. And he is also in the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. So number 50 goes to the Monster of the Midway legend, Mike Singletary.
I mean, it's just really weird that you said Chicago Bears and Super Bowl in the same sentence. It's weird, but much respect to Mike Singletary. I think he's incomparable to David Robinson, of course, but
okay, if we're going to talk about incomparable, can we just agree? Can we unanimously agree that Adam Wainwright is easily incomparable?
We can easily unanimously agree on that.
I know, but I couldn't break the streak on episode 50. I got to go with a baseball person. And I'll admit, he's not, he's not the greatest to ever wear 50, but he had a good career. So I had to go with him.
But Tommy, we're not picking the one of the greatest ever wear 50. We're picking the greatest ever wear 50.
In our opinion.
I know. I'll be better next week. We have some good ones coming up. So,
Well, we're gonna
Wait,
swing
do
it right over.
you know who Wainwright's better than though? Andy Pettit.
he's not. He's simply not. Don't even get me going. But
I mean, you said it yourself, Tommy. He's a go to number 50, so he has to be on the same level as Andy Pettit.
All right. Well, we're just gonna disregard all of this slander. We're gonna swing it over now. We have our big interview with Jake Asman next. We hope you guys all appreciate it. Like the video, subscribe. Jake Asman's a big fan of ours. We're a big fan of his, so definitely tune in.
Welcome back to Go Chat, and we have a new guest with us right now. Our second interview, we have Jake Asman. He hosts his own radio show in Houston, Texas, on ESPN. He is an Ithaca College graduate, proud Ithaca College graduate, and we are so happy to have him on the show. Jake, how are you doing today?
Guys, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. Always great to talk to some fellow Bombers.
That's right. So let's get right into the first question. So for all the viewers out there, what exactly was your path from graduating Ithaca College to now hosting your own daily radio show on ESPN?
Yeah, so the show I actually host is on Sports Map Radio, but the company that I work for, Gal Media, owns the local ESPN station. So I do a lot of fill-in work for them and I report on them, report on the local teams for the station here in Houston. But basically, from graduating IC in 2017, my first year at a school, I worked part-time as a producer and tape operator and board op at the Fan in New York City and CBS Sports Radio. And I did that for about 8 months while I was also working for a very small internet station on the east end of Long Island. At the time, the station was called Sports on the Go One. And basically, it was an online station that was doing 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday, on that station for very little pay and just getting reps, getting experience. And at the same time, I was kind of working both these part-time jobs. I was looking for full-time employment, getting some fresh stuff for my demo and sending it out to a bunch of different program directors throughout the country to get feedback and try and see if there was any openings, any jobs. And unfortunately, it took a while. It took almost a year. It was a lot of, hey, we like it, but we don't have anything. But I always tell people, stay persistent. And finally, in late May of 2018, my now boss heard my demo that I had emailed him here at the time, it was SB Nation Radio, and gave me a call and said, hey, we have an opening for a weekend host and a fill-in host during the week. And then we're also looking for someone that could contribute to our ESPN station that we own. And, once I kind of got the lay of the land and understood what the role was, it was a full-time offer and it made sense. And that was 2.5 years ago now. And since then, I've kind of worked my way to getting a daily show on the network and contributing, kind of wherever they need me in the building.
How did your time at Ithaca get you to where you are today? As well as when you were in Ithaca, we know that you had a podcast with one of your buddies from school and you took that to Radio Row. So, I mean, just take us through those experiences.
Yeah, they were amazing experiences. You guys are so lucky that you still have, time at IC. I know we were talking off air. You guys are only sophomores. So thankfully, when this COVID stuff ends, you'll still have time to go back to school and enjoy it, which is amazing. But, yeah, I mean, IC was great because, you get the hands-on experience, right? And the classes are important too, and you have great professors and you form relationships with them. But, the best part about Ithaca was, as a freshman, within 2 weeks of being on campus, I remember doing a sportscast on VIC radio. So, I mean, they put you involved, right away if you're up for it and you want to work hard at it. So I'm definitely getting the experiences at IC to get reps was huge, and it allowed me to get better as a broadcaster. I treated my 4 years at Ithaca like I was basically in like a test lab. I got to work on different things. I did play-by-play for TV and radio. I did a podcast, as you mentioned, Connor. I did a bunch of stuff for the Ithacan for a little while. So just kind of contributing all over and getting reps and being able to do everything and understanding how the behind-the-scenes stuff works was important. So just the hands-on experience you get at IC, it was definitely huge for 4 years.
Absolutely. And over the years, you've had some great guests on your podcast and your radio show. You've had Joe Montana, Mark Teixeira, Johnny Damon recently. Who's been your favorite guest over the years?
I got to get better at answering this question because it gets asked a lot. It's so tough to pick just one. Each guest has has a very special meaning to me. When I was in college, the most awesome interview I got to do was I had Bob Costas call into my radio show in the fall of my senior year, and the reason I was able to get Costas on the show was because I had interned in Rio the previous summer through IC, getting the opportunity to interview at NBC. And I was one of 4 Park students. I actually got to go to Rio and spend 6 weeks at the Olympics. And I was around Costas all the time and formed a relationship with him. And when the Olympic internship ended, I reached out to his assistant and asked if Bob would come on. And sure enough, we had a time within a couple of days scheduled and he called in. We did an interview, and that was a really cool experience just because that took 6 weeks of going to a third world country to kind of, lay the groundwork to get him to come on. So that was definitely special at the time. Interviewing Joe Buck at Radio Row when myself, Dan Budick, and Jake Chernock were still seniors in college, getting that opportunity, and Joe Buck was about to call the Super Bowl, the Patriots-Falcons Super Bowl, just a couple days later, and just getting that experience to talk to him when he told us he was only doing 2 interviews the whole week. It was Howard Stern and the Michael Kay Show in New York. So the fact that we got on that list was pretty amazing, and getting a chance to talk with him, and he couldn't have been nicer, and loved the fact that we were in college. So really good dude. And then, just professionally over the last few years, I've been fortunate to have, some great guests either on the phone or at live remotes, like a Mark Teixeira or Joe Namath or, Joe Montana, or, going to a Radio Row and having Martha Stewart on, or, Von Miller or Cam Newton. It's been, some amazing experiences. So I've been very lucky. So very long-winded answer, but it's tough because I can't just pick one because they're all very impactful and they're all very special.
So now shifting over towards the pandemic, how do you think the sports industry will change as a result of it?
So I think we're already seeing a lot of changes. We've seen a lot of cuts. Obviously, I think you're going to see a lot of broadcasters continue to call games remotely. And I think that is something that will probably be here for a while, because a lot of these major companies could save a ton of money by not having to send, broadcasters on the road and pay for hotel, pay for airfare, pay for food. It's just going to save an enormous amount of money right now. Plus, there's no vaccine yet, so they can get away with saying, "Oh, COVID, safety, and whatnot." And I don't want to say they're getting away with it. That it is, that is actually a valiant, salient point. It is true, but I just think you're going to see a whole lot of cutbacks and whatnot. Now, the good news is we're starting to see a rebound in the industry. I've noticed some more jobs that have started to open over the last couple of weeks, and that has a lot to do with, sports returning. The NFL and college football have played all the way through. We're seeing the return of basketball probably in December, and hockey will be back, shortly after that. So, you're definitely going to see, I think the industry start to bounce back a little bit. But, obviously, when you weren't having games being played for 4 or 5 months, it hurts everyone. It hurts everyone in a sports radio standpoint, where all your advertising goes away because, in local radio, no one's advertising. Come down to the bar that's next to Minute Maid Park to watch the Astros play when there's no games and you can't have fans in the building, right? So it's local advertising that goes away, and national advertising as well on our network we were really hit by. So the industry took a big hit, but I do think we've seen a lot of people adapt to Zoom and covering teams through Zoom. And I think eventually we'll get back to normal, but for now it's just kind of going to be more of the same, with hopefully the job market starting to rebound a little bit moving forward.
So just to shift back to your career path, I mean, you are still young. You just left college a couple years ago. What is your overall career goal?
Ooh, great question, Connor. So I have always wanted to talk sports in New York City, whether that be, on TV or, something with a digital platform, or, working for one of the 2 sports radio stations there. I'm a native New Yorker. I grew up on Long Island. Those are the teams I root for. So my end goal is eventually, to get that opportunity to get back to New York talking sports. But, in the short term, I just want to continue to grow my audience, grow my following on social media from the radio show every day. And, just put myself in, the best position possible to have success kind of long-term, in the field. I'm lucky right now that I am working, that there are so many people who are really good that aren't. So I'm just appreciative of that. in the short term. But yeah, end goal is to continue to kind of grow my audience and hopefully one day get back closer to home, get back to New York, and talk sports there in some capacity.
Absolutely. And talking about New York, you've mentioned before that Michael Kay is a big reason why you got into the industry. And he's mentioned you on the show a couple times. Tell me what that's been like to be recognized by Michael Kay.
So cool. Michael Kay is one of the nicest people in the industry. And it's so funny because, I grew up a diehard Yankee fan, and I also would listen to Michael's show every day. So I would always tell him, I'm like, man, during baseball season, you're in my life for like 8 hours a day between the show and then calling the game at night on Yes. So, I'm a huge fan of that show. I have been listening to the Michael Kay show on, going back to the 10:50 a.m. days on ESPN radio. So I've been listening to that show since 2006. And, I've told Michael this. I don't think I'm in sports radio if I didn't, grow up listening to his show. And, I'm a huge Boomer and Carton fan from back in the day. And obviously I remember Mike and the Mad Dog at the end of their run. So, I was just a huge sports radio listener. And, the K show was always, something that I had on constantly growing up. And, just a big fan of Michael, and, he's come on my show over the years and has been really kind. So yeah, nothing but really good things to say. And when he, mentioned me on a show a couple of times, pretty surreal moment, just because, obviously, the 10-year-old Jake Asman that was listening to the Michael Kay show never thought in a million years that he'd be referencing, an interview I did with someone that they're talking about in a segment, or, mentioning something that I had like emailed him about, like what the city of Houston was saying about the Astro scandal. So yeah, really cool. And, I can't say enough good things about the guy because he's always been really nice to me.
So I was looking through your Twitter, and I think it's very interesting and kind of funny that you're blocked by LeBron James and Quinnen Williams. What is it like to know that you're blocked by LeBron James? I mean, he had to look at your tweet and then block you. I mean,
it's wild, Matt, because it happened so quick. I don't normally troll, but I've always talked about this on the show, how big of a fraud baseball fan LeBron is. Like, this is something I brought up many times, and like anyone that's listened to the show would know that's like a thing. And when I saw LeBron tweeting about, the Dodgers and, oh, we need a championship parade for them and us. So I'm just like, man, you were a Yankee fan. You were an Indians fan. Like, stop it. So, I jokingly tweeted a picture of him wearing a Yankee hat and him, wearing an Indians jersey at the World Series a couple of years ago. And I go, yeah, a real Dodgers fan or something. And what was so funny about that is he blocked me like within a minute or two of me sending the tweet. So he saw it right away and blocked me. I didn't even realize I was blocked until I went back to find the tweet. And when you're blocked by someone, you can't like find the notifications for the tweet, because the tweet started to blow up within a minute of me sending it. I'm like, oh, I got him. And then he blocked me, and I'm like, whoa. So yeah, that was wild. I made the joke on the radio show that I felt like, Andre Iguodala in the finals from a couple of years ago getting blocked by James there. But yeah, it was pretty surreal, just because it's funny. I'm a big LeBron fan. Like, I've defended LeBron a lot on the show over, various things. So to be blocked by him is hilarious. And I hope one day I get the chance to interview him so I could tell him the story and see how that would go.
So I don't know if you can tell, but in my background here, I have a Jets flag. So I am a Jets fan, and I know that you are also a Jets fan. So take you back a couple weeks ago when you tweeted about Le'Veon Bell and how he had to be used better in his first game back. I don't think you knew that would blow up as much as it did, and your tweet be talked about so much, and in turn be the likely factor in why he was cut by the Jets. So just take us through that.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, obviously I'm a big Jets fan as well, Connor. And, I saw after the game, I think it was the Cardinals game, where yet another loss by the Jets, and they threw to Le'Veon Bell, I think like twice in the passing game. And I think it was, one of the Jet beat writers, either Costello or Samini, Hughes, one of the guys, maybe even Meta, who knows, tweet, oh, Le'Veon Bell is not speaking to us over Zoom. He's not talking. And then I saw that he had liked a tweet from one of the Jets bloggers that I follow talking about the lack of targets. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to just rip on Adam Gase, tag Le'Veon Bell in it, and like, let's see if he will like my tweet. The other tweets, though, that he liked 3 of them, my tweet included. The other tweets were about the lack of targets. Mine was point blank, basically, I'm tired of Adam Gase's BS. They should trade Le'Veon Bell because they're not using him properly. You might as well get a pick for him in a lost season, because we all know he's not going to be on the team next year anyway, right? So I sent that tweet, and then when he liked it, I didn't know it would be what it was. Like, I didn't know that, everyone would be covering it and the New York Post would write about it, but I thought it was hilarious that he liked it. And then it kind of became, that firestorm that you talked about. And then, they eventually released him. So, I mean, it was really funny just because there were so many people that were reaching out to me, like saying, you're the reason he got cut. And I'm like, he was probably getting cut either way, but it was pretty funny to have a small role involved in that.
And just to follow up to the Jets question, where do you see the team's future going? I mean, obviously, they're likely heading towards an 0-16 season this year and the likely number one pick. Where do you see the future?
Well, yeah, I mean, what you said, 0-16, first pick, bet the Jets team total under for Monday night. There's no way they're scoring 17 points. So that's a free money bet right there for everyone. And, everyone listening to this phenomenal podcast. Yeah, I mean, they're awful. This is the worst football team I have ever seen in my life. At this point, I want them to keep Gase for the remainder of the season. It serves no purpose to fire him going into the bye week after they lose to New England and fall to 0-9 on Monday. So, I just think, as much as I personally love Sam Darnold and think that if he actually had a competent team around him and a head coach around him, he could be a franchise caliber quarterback. If they're sitting there at 0-16 with the first overall pick, they'll have a new coach. They're going to have to take Lawrence. I mean, that's just like, they have to. They'll trade Sam, hopefully for a late one, but more likely a second round pick, I'd imagine. And, you hit the reset button, you start over, and you just hope that they get the head coaching hire right, because that's ultimately what it's going to come down to. There's no way Gase is back next year if they're 0-16. So just ride it out with him. They'll lose. They got to worry about Jacksonville because the Jaguars, if they finish 1-15 and the Jets somehow win a game, Jacksonville would get the pick over the Jets based on strength of schedule. So just lose, finish 0-16, deal with it, and hope that this is like 1996 all over again, where they went 1-15 with coat type. They bring in Bill Parcells, and within 2 years they're in the championship game. So whoever they hire after Gase, that will be probably the most important decision the franchise has made since that 96 hire of Parcells.
Yeah, hopefully for your and Connor's sake, they get it right for once. But anyways, let's move into more Houston-related questions. Obviously, you've been there for a little bit, covering specifically Houston sports. So going on, probably one of the biggest stories you've covered is the Astros cheating scandal. How did you go about covering that?
Yeah, I mean, there was just constant new information all the time, right? I mean, at first Astro fans were like, oh, there's no proof. And it's like, well, there's a lot of videos online kind of showing a trash can being banged and pitcher and hitters laying off a certain sequence. And they're like, no, John Boy, these people, they don't know what they're talking about. And I'm like, all right, like, fine. I mean, even now with all the punishments that have been given out, and I use punishments loosely because no players, of course, were actually punished. But even now, the Astro fan mentality has been everyone was cheating too. We were the only ones that got caught, and it's like, okay, sure, you could think that, but no one outside of Houston believes that. So it was a fun time to be kind of being involved in the story. Whenever I did get a chance to do local radio, but I told it how it was. I'm like, they cheated, they got caught. There's no evidence other teams did anything close to what they were doing, and I mean, it is what it is. I ripped Manfred's decision for the lack of punishment, and no team in baseball benefited more from the pandemic than the Astros. They didn't have to go on the road. They didn't have to deal with it for a 162 game season. And also, they weren't very good this year. They finished 2 games under 500, but they played the 2 biggest playoff chokers of this era in Minnesota and Oakland in the first 2 rounds, and they somehow found their way into the ALCS. And I'll tell you what, when they were down 3-0 and got it to a game 7, oh my God, was I furious! I was so worried that they were going to totally blow it, but thankfully the Rays found a way to win that game 7. But yeah, I mean, just a wild time to kind of be in the city. And if you're in our line of work, sports radio, there's so much you could do with that story topic wise. So it made it a lot of fun to kind of be a part of.
Sticking with Houston related questions, this past offseason, we saw the Texans ship out DeAndre Hopkins. And honestly, in my opinion, one of the worst trades that I've ever seen in my lifetime watching sports. But what were your initial thoughts about this trade?
My initial thoughts was it's the worst trade I've ever seen. My thoughts now is it's still one of the worst trades that I've ever seen. It's just horrible. And ultimately, that move, along with all the other moves over the last 2 years that the Texans have made since they gave Bill O'Brien GM duties, is the reason why Bill O'Brien, the coach, was fired. And that's the reality. I don't think Bill O'Brien, the head coach, is nearly as bad as people think he is, because the perception of Bill O'Brien was just totally damaged after that Hopkins trade and after some of the extensions that the Texans have given out to some of their own. I mean, this team right now is still feeling the effects of the 2-year O'Brien GM run. They have no cap space. They don't have a first or second round pick this year. And they're in a spot where they just don't have a whole lot of talent besides, Deshaun Watson and JJ Watt. So they're just in a very difficult spot. And I think it's going to be another year into this offseason, into next year, where they're going to have a new GM, a new coach, obviously, where they're still going to be feeling the effects of no picks and no cap space. They had their window. They went for it, but they blew a 24-0 lead in Kansas City and, obviously didn't get a chance to go to their championship game. And they should have fired. In hindsight, they should have gotten rid of O'Brien then, not doubled down by naming him officially the general manager and, allowing him to wheel and deal DeAndre Hopkins for, a bag of used footballs, basically. So that ultimately is what Texans fans are never going to, be able to get over. And, they have, just like the Jets have to nail their next head coach, Texans got to nail their next hire as well. Benefit the Texans have is obviously they already have the quarterback in place. They have the franchise guy in place. So their quote unquote rebuild should not maybe take as long as other teams, because if you get the quarterback in place and hire the right coach, we've seen it in the NFL a lot, you could turn it around pretty quickly. So that's what the Texan fan is hoping for. Nail the coaching hire and find a way, to get back to the playoffs, because you have, the most important position in sports already in place.
So my next question was actually kind of revolving around the Bill O'Brien firing, but since you kind of just went into that, I heard on your show, I think yesterday, you were talking about how JJ Watt doesn't want to be a part of a rebuild. What do you think the best move would be for the Texans with JJ Watt?
I felt they should have looked to trade him at the deadline. I don't know if they actually did. I couldn't confirm from anyone in the building if they actually had talks and whatnot. But I know for a fact Watt's frustrated with the fact, he's 31 years old, he's healthy, and the team's 1-6. I felt if JJ wanted to actually, get traded, he should have came out and said it. Like, he should have put in a formidable crest, not like do the old, like, I'm going to tell the media I'm really unhappy, but I'm not actually going to go to the organization and say, trade me. I think if he did that, maybe they would have been more inclined to move him. But I don't think JJ wanted it out there that he wanted to leave. He wanted the team just to basically move him, and they could be like, oh, well, I had no control over it, and kind of play that card. But I do think this offseason, I would be surprised if Watt's on the team next year. He's due $17.5 million. He's still a good player. He's probably not worth that. And he's no longer, his contract is no longer guaranteed. So they could either try and trade him, and I doubt a team will pick up that type of salary, especially now with the cap maybe being in flux because of the lost revenue. So I think the more likely scenario is they probably cut Watt and say, hey, we'll make you an offer and you're going to have to take a little less money. And then JJ might say, yeah, no, thanks. I'm going to go try and sign with a contending team. So I just think the writing is on the wall that barring, Texans having a second half surge where it looks like they're actually a lot closer to being a playoff team than they currently look at 1-6. I think Watt is probably on a new team next year. And that happens. I talked about it on the show yesterday, as you mentioned, most great players in the NFL don't finish their careers with just one team. And I think JJ Watt knows he has a couple of years left, and there's an opportunity for him to go to a contending team, maybe Pittsburgh, and play with his two brothers, TJ and Derek, and have that opportunity to chase a ring. Because I just don't think the Texans are going to be championship ready by next year. But if he signs a 1-year deal with the Steelers, he's in the contention for a Super Bowl right away. So I could see something like that happening.
After everything that JJ Watt has done for the city of Houston, do you think that if the Texans were to cut him or do anything with him, do you think the city of Houston would have any sort of remorse against the Texans organization?
I don't. I think it's different than the Hopkins situation, because at that time the team was, coming off the divisional round of the playoffs. It's like, hey, what are we doing? We're trying to win right now. Why are we trading away our best offensive player? With Watt, I think the fan base wants to see him win. And the fan base is realistic that the team is not ready to win a Super Bowl, obviously, this year, which is why a lot of fans were okay with the idea of trading him, because you create salary cap space. And, if you get a second round pick for JJ Watt, that's your top draft pick right there. The Texans don't have a first or a second. So every Texan fan, as much as it would pain them to see Watt go, they understood for the betterment of the organization, it would have made some sense. But they didn't trade him. And now I think if they were to let him go in the offseason, I think people would be sad to see him go, but they'd also be rooting for him to go somewhere and win. Like, I don't think there'd be animosity towards JJ for leaving. And I don't think people would be, ripping the organization, because it would be a new regime coming in and changes are going to be made. And I just think Watt is one of those guys that probably is a cap casualty just because of his salary that he's making.
Yeah, definitely got to agree with you on that point. Houston fans are definitely going to be wishing the best for him with all he's done for that city. But anyways, just to wrap up, all the Houston related questions. Who do you think the Texans should hire as their next head coach?
So I'll say this for any team that has an opening, the New York Jets, hopefully they better be included in what I'm about to say. If Jim Harbaugh is available, I think he's the guy you hire. There is no one out there that has the resume in the NFL that Harbaugh has. In 4 seasons as a coach of the Niners, they went to the championship game 3 times, and they went to the Super Bowl. And what did Colin Kaepernick do since he left Jim Harbaugh? Alex Smith was a bust until Jim Harbaugh got there and worked with him, and he took him to a championship game. I just think if Harbaugh is willing to go back to the NFL, if his days at Michigan are over, that's the guy you talk to. That's the guy you hire. I'd love to see Jim Harbaugh with Deshaun Watson. I'd love to see Jim Harbaugh with Trevor Lawrence and extra picks and cap space and turning the Jets around. It would remind me of Parcells coming in '96 after Coach tied. And within 2 years, the Jets were back to, respectability, 9-7 year one and making the playoffs almost. And then obviously 12-4. So Harbaugh to me has got to be the number one coaching candidate for any of these teams. I think the other names you're going to hear about is, probably Eric Bieniemy from the Chiefs. Their offensive coordinator is going to be a hot name. Arthur Smith from the Titans because of the work he's done with Ryan Tannehill. So there's a whole lot of names to look at that are going to be available. And I think if you're a team like the Texans, you got to make sure that whoever you bring in is fully on board with whatever direction you're going to go in as a franchise. Like if you're going to bring in a coach that is, ready to win right away, well, the GM that hired him better look at this team and be on the same page in a sense that, all right, we're not a couple of years away. We can make some moves here or there. We could be in contention. I think for the Texans in particular, because they also have a GM opening, that's important to note. They have to make sure the GM and the head coach are in line. And they've said they're going to hire a GM first, then a coach. So that kind of opens things up for a lot of different possibilities.
Oh, sorry. Absolutely. And kind of just to wrap it up a little bit, what advice do you have for podcasts like us as we're trying to grow in this industry?
Keep doing them. Have fun, reach out to a bunch of different types of guests and get experience. You guys are obviously not able to be, taping the stuff at IC this semester, but the fact that you're hopping on Zoom and able to do it virtually is awesome. And something I don't even think was around when I was going through it. So it's never been easier to get more reps. It's never been easier to write a blog and, take out your phone and record a sports update into your phone for experience. So, the biggest thing you could do is just use the next couple of years at Ithaca as an opportunity to, pay attention in your classes. But if you're working on something else while you're in there, that's okay because it's all about, getting experience and whatnot. I mean, half the time I was in class at Ithaca, by the way, I could say this now because I'm gone. I was working on my football spotting board for an ICB broadcast I was doing that weekend or, a game I was calling or something like that. So, just use your time at IC to, put everything into, if you want to be on air, trying to get better on air any way you can.
Well, Jake, thank you for coming onto the show. All of us appreciate you being here. We know you're super busy down there in Houston and with all of your stuff. We really appreciate you taking your time to be here.
Guys, anytime. Thanks so much for having me. And anytime you want me on again, just reach out.
All right, guys. Goat Chat will be right back with this week's Goat Picks.
Welcome back to Goat Chat. We are on Goat Picks now. We look at the leaderboard. Nothing's really changed that much since we have to wait for the Saturday games. But, of course, the Green Bay Packers got that W. Go, Pack, go. I think Connor was actually right about winning. I don't know.
I was close. If San Francisco
if their defense actually paid attention in the
if San Francisco didn't score that touchdown with 6 seconds left, I would have been correct on my over 20 pick.
Man, Connor's been right. He's been talking a lot of trash. Let's see if anything can change. Well, we have the 4 NFL games on Sunday. We'll start with the first one. It is the Colts versus the Ravens. Connor, who do you think is going to win?
I've slandered the Ravens quite a bit on here. I don't think Lamar Jackson's a very good quarterback. I think they're a very overrated team, but I do see them beating the Colts this week. I think they're going to win this game.
I'm going to disagree with you there. I'm going to go with the Colts. I think the Colts defense has been absolutely phenomenal, and they've been a phenomenally defense team. And we saw what Lamar Jackson did against the Steelers defense. Lamar, prove me wrong. Mike, who are you going to pick?
I'm going to take the Ravens, no question.
Tommy?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Ravens too. I just think that they're a better team. But like you said, the Colts defense, they've been great this whole year. But I think that Lamar is going to get them a win. They're going to bounce back from their loss against the Steelers last week and get the win on Sunday.
All right, next game we got Raiders, Chargers, an AFC West divisional matchup. I think a great rivalry that we see in the NFL. Connor, who are you going to go with?
You know, the Chargers have played some really good football games throughout this season, but they only have one win. I mean, we saw them blow a big lead against – they do have 2 wins?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we saw them blow the big lead last week against Denver, and Anthony Lynn's definitely sitting on the hot seat, and the Raiders are just a really good team. I think the Raiders win this game.
I'm going to go with Justin Herbert and the LA Chargers here. Let me take the lead, Connor. Mike, who are you going to get?
Well, let me tell you right now, you are not taking the lead. You're going to fall all the way down to last place.
All right.
Raiders,
Then pick.
the Raiders are going to win this game. Josh Jacobs.
Who was in 4th last time during the series? Who ended 4th?
Weren't we tied?
Well, if we win into tiebreaker, because you are obsessed with Lamar Jackson for some weird reason, and you all love the Ravens. You picked the Ravens over the Steelers, which was absolutely clownery.
They lost by like 4 points. It's not like the Steelers blew them out. Anyways, I'm picking the Raiders because I think they will have a lot of success against the Chargers running the ball, and I just don't think the Chargers can close out games. We've seen that over the past 4 games.
Tommy?
I'm going to agree with Connor and Mike. I don't even think it's going to be close. I think the Raiders are going to win this easily. That's my prediction. I don't know, but yeah, I'm going to go with the Raiders.
All right, next game we got is the Dolphins and the Cardinals. Connor, who are you going to go with?
We saw the Dolphins defense had a really good game against the Rams last week, which kind of helped Tua not have a very good game, and yet they still managed to get the win. I think the Cardinals offense is just too lethal. I don't think the Miami Dolphins defense is going to be able to stop it as well as they did with the Rams. So for that reason, I'm taking the Cardinals, led by Kyler Murray.
I'm going to take the Cardinals too. I don't think Miami's defense is going to replicate what they did last week. You know, and what they did was great. And also the running back situation that they have in Miami is not going to help Tua at all. And Tua didn't even really have that spectacular of a game last week. So for that reason, I'm going to go with the Cardinals. Mike?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Cardinals too. I would love to pick the Dolphins here, but I think both Gaskin and Breida being out is going to hurt them. And, you know, Tua, he might struggle this game, but I think he'll progress out of the season. He's just not there yet right now.
And Tommy?
I'm going to agree with you all. I just think that since the game's in Arizona, that's going to help the Cardinals. And overall, I just think the Cardinals are a better team. So I'm going to go with them on Sunday.
They're coming off a bye too. I forgot to say that.
Okay.
And the final game that we have is the Bucs Saints. We picked this week 1. Now we're at week 9. Antonio Brown's debut game with the Bucs. Sunday Night Football. Connor, who do you have?
Tampa Bay has looked really good. It's hard to pick against Tampa Bay right now. I'm going to go with the Buccaneers.
I'm going to go roll with the Buccaneers too. I think these two teams are top of the NFC South, and I think they're going to split the series. Mike?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bucs here too. The Saints have, you know, they've been some bad teams, but those games have been really close. Only 1 possession games. I know that the Bucs only beat the Giants by 2 last week, but the previous weeks before that, they were blowing every team out. So there's no reason for me to pick against the Buccaneers.
And Tommy?
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to go with the Saints. I think that they're going to have a big week. I know that the game is in Tampa, but I just think that the Saints are going to come out on top. I think it will be a close game, but I'm going to give the advantage to New Orleans.
Well, guys, that's a wrap. Big episode number 50. It's been a great 50. Wouldn't want to do it with any other guys. Yeah, like, subscribe. Keep up. We're getting great viewership on our recent videos. We really do appreciate that. Hopefully we can keep that going.
Please subscribe.
Yeah, and here's to another 50 of awful takes, great arguments, and no agreements.
That's right. Let's keep it rolling.
Go Chat will be back on Wednesday. Stay safe.